I can't believe that we are at the end of week 4. We only have a couple of more weeks left, 4 sessions in total before we are done with our summer session, which to me, it's still unbelievable that time has gone by so quickly. Anyways, so really quickly, I just want to kind of go over a couple of announcements, just clarifying a couple of things. First things first, I already graded all the discussion posts for the visual argument paper, gave you some feedback, make sure that you have actually looked through it. In some instances, I probably gave you some feedback that would be helpful for you all to write your paper. Second of all, I have been made aware that there is some type of glitch going on Canvas with the quizzes and the text box for the quizzes. So I went in and I tried to look at it from my end, and from my end, it actually looks perfectly normal. So there's nothing for me to really fix. So I am not sure if it's just the Canvas site itself or what is going on, but really on my end, there's nothing much. There's nothing really that I can do. So a lot of you have been telling me that you have been answering both questions in the only text box that's available. That's perfectly fine with me. You will get full credit. Just make sure that you just add, put both answers in the same text box that's available for you all, and then I'll just grade from there. But thank you all for letting me know about those issues. And I'm sorry that it's been glitching. Like I said, like on my end, it doesn't look like there's anything that I can do from my end. So it's probably just like a Canvas glitch. So that's the first thing. Second thing that I wanted to remind you all is that your paper, your visual argumentation paper and presentation is due tomorrow at 11:59 p.m. Make sure that you submit your paper and your presentation before the deadline. You don't want to miss the deadline. You don't want to have any like problems with Canvas or with Flipgrid that won't allow you to submit your work. So make sure that you submit it before the deadline. Try to do it as soon as possible. Also, you do have quizzes and you do have discussion posts for this week that are also due. So make sure that you take them by tomorrow at 11:59 p.m. So that is that. So make sure that you submit all of your work, that you're staying on top of everything. I'm working through the midterms. I will be finishing the midterms sometime tomorrow. I'll have them all graded for you all. So I'll try to get that done as soon as possible. And again, like I usually like to be caught up with most of the grading as we get closer to the end of the session so that you have a better idea as to what your grade is going to look like. So like I said, I promise that I will get through your midterms sometime either today or tomorrow. So that's that. So today I thought we would do, we would just talk about academic debates. What are academic debates? What is the process that they go into? What is the structure? So today we're going to be talking about chapter 11, which is academic debates. For chapter 9, I have given you a bunch of resources on our Canvas page that kind of detail the refutation process. So I decided that I'm not going to cover that in our lecture today, since I pretty much have covered it on our Canvas page. You have different pages that kind of like go over the refutation process and that provide you examples. So that's already there for you all to look at. So I'm not going to go over chapter 9 just because I don't want to be redundant and repeat the same things that you have there. But I am going to go over chapter 10. We are going to talk about academic debating and just what it kind of looks like when we think about like the speech and debate team and all of that. So let me quickly share my screen with you all so that we can go over that. Okay, so this is what we're going to be talking about in our lecture today. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about when it comes to academic debating is that a lot of people, once they hear the term debate, they think that debating is boring, that it gets messy. And like automatically when people think about debates, they think about political debates. So what we see during, like what we saw during our last 2020 election, usually that's what people often think about when they think of debates. And it just, it gives you a headache. I mean, when you look at politicians debating on live TV, gives you a headache. You think it's too much, overwhelming, messy, really, really emotional and complicated. Now, next week, I'm going to be talking a little bit more as to what political debating looks like and argumentation in politics. I'll address it more next week, but I wanted to clarify to you all that what you see when we see political debates is not actual debates. Political debates are not really academic debates. They're more of a press conference. They're more of kind of just like showing off the candidate and just like getting the candidate that exposure and getting them to kind of like connect with the people during like meetings and just get questions asked and see how they react. But it's not really about a structured debate, kind of like what you see in this chapter. It's definitely not like that. So the objectives of today's lesson are that by the end of the lesson, we should be able to define what the burden of proof is. This is a very important concept that you have to understand, because the burden of proof is basically what the affirmative side has to do during their debate. They have to prove that whatever claim they're pushing forward is true beyond reasonable doubt. Also, we are going to identify the parts of the format of academic debate. The academic debate has 3 different parts. We're going to talk about the 3 different parts. And we're also going to talk about the order in which those parts happened. And that's what we are going to go over today. Hopefully it helps you kind of like see the amount of work that it goes in preparing a debate. And just like when you think about all these like folks that are classmates of yours who go into this forensic speech and debate team, they put in a lot of work to go through all these competitions. And, you know, it's something to think about. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is the idea of a resolution. So when we talk about chapter 5, we talked about the idea of propositions. When we are talking about academic debates, the proposition is referred to as the resolution, or basically the subject of the debate. That's your resolution, proposition / claim. That's what it's referred to in academic debates as the resolution. And again, the resolution is always announced before the debate starts, whether it be, you know, if we were having an actual debate in a classroom setting, if we were in the longest, you know, semester, if we're in the regular semester, we would be having a debate in the classroom, whether it be through Zoom or on the actual classroom, we will be having a debate. The first thing that I have you do in a debate is just announce what the resolution, in other words, what the topic of the debate is. You always announce it first so that the audience knows what the topic is, and you usually announce which side you are arguing for as well. Now, the reason why it's really important to have a clear resolution, why you should always have it at the beginning of debate, is because it announces the topic, it lets the audience knows what to expect. Also, it kind of divides the grounds for both teams. It lets the audience know who is pushing that claim forward and who is going against that claim. And with that being said, it kind of like also tells you what the responsibilities of each side are. In this lecture today, we are actually going to be going over the different responsibilities that each side has. So the affirmative side has a set of responsibilities they have to meet. The negative side also has a set of responsibilities that they have to meet. So by announcing the proposition and announcing which side of the proposition you're on, you're also kind of like letting the audience know what it is that they should expect out of you. So again, like I said, resolution is really important, should always announce it at the beginning of debates. And it just helps the audience get a clear understanding of the topic. It also helps the audience know what to expect out of you. Actually, a couple years back, I'm going to bring this example because I think that it kind of highlights what I'm talking about. But a couple of years back, I actually had one of my classes in which they were debating. And I kid you not, I got to the end of the debate and I had no idea who was in the affirmative and who was in the negative side. And, you know, when I set them aside, you know, at the end of the class, just kind of like to touch bases with them because I was really confused as to who was on which side of the debate. They didn't know which side they were on. Like both of them thought that they were in the affirmative side when, you know, they weren't. So one of the really good things to do is like to have a clear proposition and clearly announce which side you're on, because not only does it help the audience, but it also helps yourself as the team so that you're not confused. Next, let's talk about the burdens. So the affirmative side, which again, I want to clarify this. When we're talking about the affirmative side of a debate, We're not talking about the person who is saying, yes, this should happen. The affirmative side is whoever supports the claim. So even if the claim is written with negatives in it, if you are the one who is supporting the claim, you are automatically on the affirmative side. Let me give you an example. So if you have a claim, for example, that says Disneyland should not require people to show their vaccination cards to not wear masks or something like that, right? Even if you have the should not in there, if you are the ones who are pushing that proposition forward, who are supporting that proposition forward, it doesn't matter if it has a negative in the proposition, you're still in the affirmative side. And the person who is on the other side who says, yes, they should ask for vaccination cards upon entrance so that you're free not to wear a mask, you're on the negative side because you're going against the proposition, the resolution of the debate. Does that make sense? Because I've always had students that are like, yeah, but the proposition is written in the negative. So that means that whoever is supporting it is in the negative and whoever is not is in like the positive. And I'm just like, no. Whoever pushes the resolution forward is in the affirmative, regardless of how the proposition is written. Even if it has double negatives, it doesn't matter. If you are supporting the proposition, you are in the affirmative side. Okay, so again, the affirmative side is those who are favoring the resolution. They are the ones who propose some type of change, right? So for example, in the case that I was giving an example, it is already like, if I'm saying that Disneyland should not require people to present their vaccination cards to be free not to wear a mask, that means that that's proposing the change. That means that they are already doing it. And the negative side on the other hand is saying that we should stick with the status quo. So the affirmative side is the one that's always proposing change in values, policies, beliefs, etc. And the affirmative side has the task to prove that whatever resolution they're pushing forward is the one that we need, the one that is the most desirable, the one that's the correct way of handling the problem. On the negative side, on the other hand, we have those who oppose the resolution. Again, kind of going back to what I was just saying, no matter how the resolution is written, if you're not the one who's proposing the resolution, then you're automatically on the negative side. So they're the ones who oppose it. And the negative side has this burden, which is called the burden or rejoinder. And basically the burden or rejoinder says that the negative side has the task of basically disagreeing with what the affirmative side says. That's their job. Their entire job during the debate is to disagree with whatever the affirmative side proposes. And again, one of the things that people get really, really confused about when they're on the negative side of the debate is that they think that, they have to show that everything the affirmative side is saying is not true. And it's not about showing it that it's not true or it's true. It's more about showing that, the status quo is fine. We don't need change. It's just kind of saying like things are good the way that they are. We don't need change. And, yeah, your idea might be good, but things are working out just fine. We don't need any change. That's basically what the negative side has to do. Hopefully that's making a lot of sense to you all. And I hope that I'm clarifying it because I know that the book, chapter 11 is super, super dense in the book. So I hope that I am helping clarify that for y'all. So the next thing that we're going to talk about are presumption and burden of proof. So burden of proof is the task of the affirmative side. All the affirmative sides have the burden of proof. That means that they have to show that the resolution is true. So remember when we were talking about a few weeks ago about stock issues, the ill, the blame, the cure, and the cost? We were talking about all of those. So in a debate of a proposition of policy, that's how you demonstrate burden of proof, by kind of like going over like all of those areas, making sure that they're well supported, making sure that your solution is well put together, and that you demonstrate the process in which the solution is going to be put into action. That's how you make sure that you are showing that your resolution is true beyond a reasonable doubt. That's what the affirmative side has to do. So the affirmative side is the only one who has the burden of proof. And like we were talking about in the previous slide, the negative side has the burden of rejoinder, which is that they have to disagree with what the affirmative side is putting out. And they don't have to show that it's not true. They just have to show that the way that the affirmative side is spinning their story doesn't work, but the way that things are going is just fine. The idea of presumption is something that the negative side has working to their advantage. Presumption means that the negative side has the advantage that things are already going in the way that they're supporting, or the way that they are, the side that they're supporting is already the way things are right now. And the good thing about presumption is that if we don't know any different, things are good the way they are until somebody kind of like challenges that idea and shows that things are not good anymore. That's when presumption is challenged. And the negative side has the advantage that things are already the way that the negative side is supporting, so they don't really have that burden of proof that the affirmative side has. So that's one of the advantages that they have. Hopefully that makes sense to a lot of you all. So again, remember, affirmative has the burden of proof, negative has the burden of rejoinder, and the negative also has the advantage of presumption. So if we were in a longer semester, or if we were in a face-to-face classroom, right now we will be having a debate. That will be our last major assignment for the semester. Fortunately, due to the whole amount of people that we have in the class and the fact that we have a shorter session, we don't have a debate assignment for the summer session, but I'm still going to go over what it would look like if we actually were having one. So if we were having a debate, we would be having a policy debate. And a policy debate is, again, kind of like when we talked about the proposition of policy in chapter 5, a policy debate is a debate that is kind of proposing a plan of action, proposing a solution to a problem, and it's through an action that needs to be taken. So the affirmative side is the one who is proposing the solution to the problem, who is proposing the plan and how it should be carried out. The negative side is just saying that the new plan would not be better than what we have now. So stick with the status quo. And the best way that I can explain a policy debate to y'all, it's using this Mean Girls meme that says, you didn't read a plan and it's a policy debate, you can't sit with us. So if you don't have a plan when you are actually engaging in a policy debate, then it's not a policy debate if you don't have a plan. Every single policy debate has to have a plan. So that makes sense. The next thing that I'm going to talk about, it's the format of debates. Like I said, debates have a format. They have a structure as to how they kind of like go, how they work, and how they like the order in which each of the sides gets to speak. Right now, we're going to talk about that. So the order of speaking, so again, one of the things that I want you to keep in mind is that each side has its advantages and its disadvantages. Like we were talking about in the previous side, the negative has the advantage of presumption, and the affirmative has the advantage of the order of speaking. So the affirmative side will always begin the debate, and they will always be the first to speak, and they always will be the last to speak. So they will open and close the debate. So that's one of the advantages that they have. So the negative has presumption. The affirmative has the advantage that they open and close the speaking and the debates. And again, this is a way to kind of like offset the advantage of presumption that the negative side holds. The negative side already holds, the status quo. People already are living in what the negative side is, kind of supporting. So they have that big advantage working out for them. And the way that the affirmative side can kind of offset that is if they initiate and conclude the speaking of the debate. The negative also has another advantage besides presumption, and that means that they have 2 consecutive turns of speaking, which is referred to as the negative block. So usually debates will happen, the affirmative side will open with their constructive, then we'll have cross-examination from the negative side, which means the negative gets to ask questions to the affirmative. Then the negative side gets to go on their constructive. Then the affirmative gets to do their cross-examination of the negative side. and then the negative closes, and then the affirmative closes. That's how the order works out. So again, you see that the affirmative opens, affirmative closes, and the negative has their constructive and their cross-examination right after one another, which is what the negative block refers to. So again, that's kind of like their advantages, disadvantages. That's kind of like the order it goes into. So again, affirmative does their constructive, followed by the negative cross-examination, followed by negative constructive, followed by affirmative cross-examination, followed by negative closing, followed by affirmative closing. So as you can see, that's kind of like how the order goes. The last thing that I'm going to be talking to you all about today is the different parts of the debate. So there are 3 different speeches. So you probably just heard me kind of like say them right now really quickly. And you're probably thinking to yourself, like, what is this woman talking about? Constructive, cross-examination, closing, what are all these things? So right now, I'm actually going to go over what each of those areas are, each of those speeches are, what they mean, what you do in each one of those. And again, I will be repeating once more the order of the speaking when it comes to debates. So the first thing that the first speech is called the constructive. And again, like I said, the affirmative side always gets to say their constructive first. So the first thing is the affirmative constructive. That's what they open with. And basically the constructive is just the time that you get to present your position on the case, right? So for the affirmative side, the constructive will definitely, if it's a policy debate, it will cover the stock issue. So it will cover the ill, the blame, the cure, and the cost. It will cover the stock issues. That's what you do in your constructive. For the negative side, their constructive will kind of like show why the status quo is the way that we should stick to and why the affirmative side solution is not the best. So that's, again, that's the constructive speech is the main time, the main opportunity that each side has to state their arguments. And again, for the affirmative side, is kind of like delineating their stock issues. So again, ill, blame, cure, and cost. And for the negative side, is just showing why the status quo should stay the way that it is. Your closing or your rebuttal speeches are what happens at the end. So it's the last turn of speaking that you'll have. So we have the negative, rebuttal, or closing, and then the affirmative, rebuttal, or closing. In the closing, basically what you do is you kind of summarize the main areas that you want the audience to think about at the end of your debate while they're deciding on like which side they want to go for. You want to kind of like highlight the main parts of your constructive that you feel are the most important, that would drive the point home. And also in your rebuttal, it is the opportunity for you to highlight the areas in which the opposing side show weakness. So in the rebuttal speeches, that's your last chance to talk, like I said, when you summarize and wrap everything up, and when you kind of tell the audience, hey, choose my side because I'm the one who has like whatever better, whatever it is that you're trying to refer to. So you're probably wondering right now, like, how do I know what the opposition, what the areas of weakness of the opposition are? Like, how do I know? Before you get to your rebuttal speeches, you will have the cross-examination period. And during the cross-examination is when you get to ask questions to the opposing side, when it's your turn for cross-examination. And at that particular time, when you ask questions, you see how quick on their feet the opposing side answers and the quality of the answers that they give to you. And the answers that they give to you, or kind of like the way that they answer, or can be things that can show weakness in their argument. And those are areas that you want to bring back up into your rebuttal and say, hey, this is where they were weak. Remember when they answered this question and they didn't have a good answer? This is why you should not vote for them. And one of the things that I want to clarify for everybody is that when it comes to the rebuttal, in the rebuttal section of a debate, you're not allowed to bring up any new information all the new information that you can bring up, you can bring it up in your constructive, and you can use it to formulate questions or to answer questions in cross-examination. Those are the two areas during your debate where you can bring in new information that you might want to touch upon during your rebuttal or during another area of your debate. However, when you're doing your rebuttal speeches, the only things that you're allowed to bring up are stuff that has already been talked about and has been discussed throughout the debate. The reason being is because if you bring in new material, your rebuttal is the last chance that you get to talk. So once you finish your rebuttal, the negative side, the affirmative side has a chance to answer to the new information that you brought up, but you, if you're in the negative side, you don't, because it's the last chance you get to speak. So no new information is brought up in the rebuttal speeches. And again, like I said, it's the last opportunity to drive your point home to convince the audience why your argument is the best and why you believe you won the debate. Cross-examination, again, it's the time during your debate when you get to ask questions depending on whose turn it is. So like I said at the very beginning, we have the affirmative constructive and then we have negative cross-examination. So after the affirmative has introduced their position with their evidence, the negative side gets to ask the affirmative side questions. And then we go into the negative constructive. And after the negative constructive, we have the affirmative cross-examination when the affirmative side gets to ask the negative side questions. And the only people that get to ask questions during cross-examination is the side whose turn it is. So after the affirmative constructive, we have negative cross-examination. So only the negative side is allowed to ask questions. The affirmative side cannot ask any questions unless there are questions to clarify. So for example, if I didn't understand your question, I could say, could you clarify that for me? Could you please repeat that? Those are questions that are still allowed to be asked, even if it's not my turn. But if it's not my turn, I'm not allowed to ask any other questions besides just simple clarification questions. So the person whose turn it is are the one who controls the questions, who gets to decide when to move on to the next question. Obviously, you have to think about ethics and you have to think about being respectful, but you usually are the one who can cut off an answer, move on to the next question, etc. So that's basically what debates look like. Again, just kind of like going over the structure. The affirmative constructive goes first, then we have negative cross-examination, then we have negative constructive, affirmative cross-examination, negative rebuttal / closing, and then affirmative rebuttal / closing. That's how debates work out. Hopefully it makes a lot more sense to you all. And again, if you are ever engaging in a debate, just remember like all these key areas that I have given to you, and it should help you formulate a really good debate. And with that being said, folks, you are all good to go for today. Use this time to work on your paper, submit your assignments that are due tomorrow, because I don't want you to be submitting any work late, which might cause you to lose points. I hope you all have a good weekend, and I will see you all next week.
Thanks, Professor.
Thank you all.
Have a good week.
You too.
Professor, I just want to clarify. We need, you said 3 sources, external sources for the paper, right?
Yes.
And then it's